Well, who's having fun? Who's going to be back next year? Come on, Mike Murphy. Well, good. Look, this kind of morphed from just an OCC meeting all the way to this. And that's kind of testimony to what Volato is trying to do with, now, you know, could we have done this earlier to start, you know, cultivating the culture and all that stuff? Sure, but it's never too late, I say. You know, when the conversation began on what this is going to end up being, I think I wasn't too involved in it, but then it got interesting on who's going to attend and what we're trying to do, and you're like, yeah, I want to be part of this. You know, almost never made it, but thanks to drugs and a crap ton of, I said crap, yeah, and cough drops and everything, here I am. But, you know, a little background about me. I think most of you know me here, but majority of my initial flying stage was in flight instruction, you know, 141 stuff, and then went on to flight safety, did the 142 stuff. I think I was going one number up in the Citation Mustang, which incidentally was a light jet, and went through the checking phases, training phases. I did, right after that, went to Africa, so I got that Kilimanjaro crossing done and came back to the United States, and then I went into production test with Textron, Cessna, and then eventually went to Textron. Did that, most fun I ever had, flying new airplanes off the ground. And then got into 135 and aircraft training, after which, you know, I ran into Glenn and got on with Jedit, started their flight operations, was part of their 135 certification and their 91K, and then ran into Matt and Mr. Mike Murphy at NBAA, and here we are. Started as the chief pilot and morphed into the director of training, started that flight operations with, you know, taking over from Josh, and worked with Jim Lawson, and then, you know, started hiring all the pilots. And after that, it was time to, you know, hand over the reins to more capable people. So we found JP somewhere, and now he's leading the chief pilot role, and we got another gentleman who unfortunately couldn't make it, Chris Verbal. He's our director of training. So you've seen, for those who have followed Volato, you know, I was pilot number 6, right? I think we were maybe 12 people in the company then. If Trudy was here, she'd give me a more accurate number, but I think we're at 240 now. And that is in a span of a year and 4 months. You know, one can think, oh my God, that's crazy. But it tells you that not only are we growing because of the demand and everything, it's growing because we have all these individuals in the company that are holding the company to standards, right? We couldn't have come here without the help of every one of this, you know, person in the company. There was a time for a few months there where Josh and I were the only people doing everything. And then we realized, oh my God, there's only 24 hours in a day, and we're working 48 hours. So we got more and more people involved. Brienne, when she started, by the way, can we give a hand to our OCC team here, who is hands down one of the nucleus of this company, and you know, half the things that we're able to do, we couldn't do without these folks. But you know, that department has grown. We'll see how that has come into standards. But it's evolved in a way that we went from making decisions from 2 people now to being a collective organization and bringing all the minds and the skills of the company to make decisions. And that's where standards comes in. You know, this was a department that was never, well, it's not even a department, it's just me, but we found that it's important to take somebody away from the minutia of things and see the company as a whole and how we can standardize things, because we need it. So what are standards? If I stand here and ask the question open here, what are standards? How would you define standards? What would you say?
Publish standards.
What are standards?
Defined one-voice concept to be instituted throughout the company operations.
Okay. Consistency.
What you go to when there's questions. What you go to when there's questions.
Okay, so kind of a FAQ. Really? Nobody else? Guidelines? Right. I mean, you can define standards in so many ways. Yeah. I like to define standard as a formula that describes the best way of doing something. This is our standard of doing this. This is our standard of how clean we keep our airplanes. This is our standard of what our pilots look like, right? This is what our standard looks like when it comes to communication with our customers. This is our standard of pilot hiring. This is what minimum we want. I came up with this tagline, but essentially it's what we're trying to do with standards is everybody is saying and doing the same thing every time, right? When I first presented this question to at least the senior leadership or the middle group was, tell me what you think standards are, right? What is our standard? What is if you're going to go sell the aircraft today, what's the range of the Honda Jet that you're going to present to the customer? And I got a different answer every time, right? So we want to standardize, make sure everybody's doing the same thing, saying the same thing so that we are unified. At least we appear unified, right? So that's kind of the tagline I have right now, and we'll come up with something later, but one company, one message, we're saying the same thing, doing the same thing every time. Why would we want to have standards? Are they important? Do we even need to have standards as an organization this big? I think so. For the same things I said that we discussed. Why? Because it tells you, are we really good at this? And this morphs into safety eventually. When I come to a few slides over here, you'll understand why. Now I use this same thing every time. I've always used this little video. Brianne, where's my mouse? Help. Maybe you should just stand here. Can you click on that? Now click on, is there a standard here? Where's my audio? Should have trained for this before. You did?
Das hier ist mein Sektor. Das hier ist das wichtigste Gerät des Küstenwächters. Das Gerät und das Gerät. Überlebensradar.
Mayday, mayday. Hello, can you hear us? Can you hear us? Can you... Over. We are sinking. We are sinking.
Hello? This is the German Coast Guard.
We are sinking. We're sinking.
What are you thinking about?
Okay. I use this every time I start NDoc. There's two videos I use. This one And if you've seen the army climbing that wall, you know, one guy comes there, stands there, doesn't know what to do with the wall, and another guy comes in, and then the whole of them come in, they help each other go the wall. But I use this to ask everybody, what do you see in that video? What's wrong with what's going on in that video? Be it the instructor or the cadet that was there. Well, they spoke German. All right, so there was a language barrier. No supervision. You know, he showed up and says, this is this is that, this is this, patted him on the back, picked his cup and left. And assume that this guy is going to be okay. Never know if he's ever been trained, whether he knows how to use this equipment, and obviously doesn't know that the British is going to call him and speak to him in English. Right? Was there a lot of standardization in there? Right? We don't even know if this guy was actually trained there. He might not. He might even be in the wrong department, right? Maybe he was the male guy. So again, going back to why I have standards, you know, it makes you more efficient. Once you have standards, you know exactly what you're going to do. Everybody does the same thing every time. It makes you more efficient. Service failures, or failures period. You have standard operating procedures. If you keep doing things as instructed, you don't have a failure. Do we agree? You know. Safety. Do we agree that having standard operating procedures enhances safety? In what way? Exactly. As long as your SOPs have been vetted, have been enhanced, they've gone through the rigmarole of testing, like you said, they make sense, right? They're organized. Yes, they do help safety. Having SOPs that are just haphazard may not help you with safety, right? Understanding what those SOPs are, because if I can come here and just verbally recite every SOP that we have over here, but I don't know how to implement it, does that help?
You're only at the road level.
So we enhance SOPs, and then I'll go through some of those towards the end. We're starting to implement a lot of SOPs in our company, and we train to that. Our training captains train to that during our SOPs. We have now Rev 5 of our Honda Jet SOPs. You know, and every time something comes up, we go change it. And we go send it out, mass email, everybody goes through that, and we're now going to start implementing, this is the changes on those SOPs. So now you don't have to go through every page to understand what has changed. Maintains consistency. You're doing the same thing every time. Whether you fly with me, or you fly with Josh, or you fly with JP, we're doing the same thing. CRM, you know, how many here who are pilots have had a discrepancy or a disagreement in the cockpit? Did you have SOPs? I fail to understand, obviously, you know, there is a personality conflict, and then there is an operational or philosophical conflict. As long as you have SOPs, short of a personality conflict, you should never have a CRM issue. That's what I believe. Because you are following SOPs in the aircraft, and that's all you need to do. You don't have to worry about, I don't like him because he likes ginger ale, and I don't like ginger ale, or I don't like the way he looks, or she. But as long as you have SOPs, you should not have a CRM issue. Go there, do your business, don't worry about each other. You do what you have to do, you do what you have to do. Now, it does make it a little uncomfortable, sure, but having SOPs enhances CRM. Who disagrees? Does that enhance safety? Standard operating procedures, you know, it's in my opinions, is an art. You know, just go out there and writing standard operating procedures is okay, but making sure is, and sometimes it's even scientific. You collect data, you get people involved that are specialists in your company. You know, we don't do standard operating procedures on an individual level. Everything we do is coming up as a organization, as a team. You know, you've got subject matter experts, you've got great minds, you've got Josh, you've got JP, you've got, you know, Steve Brady, you've got Pat, you've got Nando. You know, everybody comes here with a skill level. Everybody comes here with some kind of experience that we take into consideration when we make decisions, when we make policies, when we make standards. Obviously, the advantage to that is you get buy-in from everybody, you get awareness. You know exactly what we're doing, you know exactly what we're doing, and then we go and share it out. And I like this picture, I use it quite often. It's because everybody comes in with, doesn't matter what kind of wheel you bring in, or cog, everybody comes in with their little idea, their little help, and now we make the whole big wheel turn. You know, we do everything collective, everybody's involved in the decision making. That is obviously a lead in that department, because every SOP we do is directly or indirectly involved with everybody else in the company, right? If we have an SOP in the flight department, well, that involves operations, right? What we do in flight or don't do in flight is directly going to affect what marketing is doing or showing what the company is advertising, right? And also sales. What sales is doing is obviously going to affect us because that's the expectation they're setting that we ultimately have to meet. And if we can't, then there's a disconnect. Does that make sense? You know, and we always want to be better. We don't want to be just another company out there that's flying people around. We want to be better. And if you can't tell that today, then you need to come back tomorrow. Okay? We are trying to be better. There's always the norm. Everybody does the same thing every time, but what can Volato do to make us stand out? So when our marketing department is advertising to the company or to the public, when our salesperson, people are going to speak to potential clients, well, I've got NetJets, I've got FlexJet, I've got this company. What makes you better? Why would I want to come to you? That's how we look at our standards. You know, we've all heard that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Well, so was Nintendo 64, right? So was the first iPhone. We're going to keep doing better. The moment we do something good, we're going to do better. And that's the philosophy that we are implementing within the companies. All right, we've done this good. How can we make it better, more efficient? You've heard culture, culture, culture for the last 6 hours. we pride ourselves in the culture we've built in, that we stand by, that we're going to do our best to continue with, is our culture. Right? You'll hear it from everybody that's come from the other operator, including myself, is what we do differently. Why did you come join us instead of stay where you're at? Well, I heard you guys do this. Same thing, like I said, we don't want to be just another operator. We want to be the best. We want to start with being better, and then we want to be the best. I think Josh and JP talked about, supervised operating experience. We don't have to do it, but we do it because we want to be good, we want to be better, we want to be safe. Every captain comes in, has to do the 25 hours minimum, so they learn how to operate the Honda jet. So they learn the Volato way of doing things. Performance and planning, you saw JP talk about it, Josh talked about it. We take performance and planning at heart because, and when I started the in-doc process, one thing I noticed was not many training departments talk about how to do performance and planning. So we give you the tools. In fact, OCC here is part of that training, and they already do that for our pilots prior to the trip. We're not required to have the assistant chief pilot position in our company, but we do. So that you have our pilots be able to go into an intermediate level of managerial, conversation, rather than calling JP all the time. So now his stress level is a little low. Josh talked about training captains. We pick one of our best captains to train our new captains. And because you don't have to, any captain can go and do SOE with them, but we select our best, our highest time captains as training captains to teach our incoming captains. Like I said, every department here now is going to have standard operating procedures because it makes, crew training and efficiency. Training is a big one. I've asked every department to start looking at a training program for each department so that we're training to the same standards. We hire somebody in marketing because they have this resume over here. We expect them to know exactly what to do, and it's a plug and play. Well, it's not the same. When we first started, our first in-doc was July of 2022. Josh? 21? 22. No, it was February of 2022. 21? Jeez, time flies. Yeah. It was at Atlantic Aviation, and it was a 4-day in-doc. Our in-doc today is 2 weeks, split by a week. We do not budge on training. We looked at our in-doc program. Every time we did it, we looked at what can we do better the next time. We went from 4-day to a 5-day to a 6-day to a 7-day. Now it's 2 weeks. My last conversation with our director of training was, what are we missing? We're lacking, our MEL is taking 30 minutes, we need 1.5 hours. Add another day. So it's that kind of a thing that we try to instill in the companies. Do it right the first time. If you have to add a day in training, do it. Because doing it at the end of when they're already on the line is a little too late. Aircraft SOPs. We're not required to have SOPs for each airplane, but we have it for the Honda jet. And we're starting to do that with the Bravo. We're going to do that for the G280s. And we're going to start doing an aircraft SOP for every model or every type. communication is by far something that we take very seriously. You know, like Josh says, the buy-in is over there. Everything goes from the bottom to the top. If there is a question about a trip, we all get on the phone and we look at it every different way. He does the planning, I do the planning, we compare it, and then we find out, oh, yeah, we can do it or we don't. We talked about circadian rhythms. We look at it all the time. You know, not many companies look at that. We do. It's important to understand that your body is not as effective it is when you're at your home base versus a totally different time zone. You know, right now, it is 6:30 in my head, right? And for those who are from the East Coast. So in an hour and a half, it's going to be dinner time, and then 2 hours from there is going to be bedtime. Fatigue and stress. You know, Josh talked about what are we doing the day before? What are we doing the day of? What's the day going to be like today? And we asked the crew, how are you feeling? You know, we've got a 6 o'clock departure. It's going to end you up at 11 o'clock at night. What do you think? Are you going to be okay? Well, not only do we ask the captain, we also talk to the SIC. How are you feeling? This is something we're having in conversation with flight safety. Is now we're going to utilize the unused simulator time so we can do our SIC training in the simulator, which makes it more efficient. Right? By the time you get the airplane started, pre-flighted, fueled, taxi out, you know, you've lost a good half an hour. In the simulator, you push a button, it's ready to go. So we can do a lot more stuff. We can do. Huh? Right. You know, that's the revenue part of things, but efficiency. Right?
Make sure they understand we had to do it because there was no simulator time.
Yeah. I mean, well, of course. You know, there was one simulator when we first started, and we had 3 different operators. And Julie was part of those discussions. We were struggling to get sim time. You know, that's why we had to go to the accelerated program. But obviously, now that we're the largest operator, and there's 2 sims, we get more sim time. Well, the other one's not 135 certified, and it's in Europe. But if Honda's going to take some of the cost, we'll go to Europe. But it makes it more efficient. We can do a lot more, right? We can do avionics training, we can do engine failures, and get our SICs to be better pilots. Things that we shouldn't be doing in the airplane. As far as I know, we are one of the very few companies that actually have company-specific customer service SOPs. So whether you're flying with me as a new customer or even a returning customer, you're being treated the same way. You know, it's a single pilot operation. I was a stickler for this one, where we actually have a process. For every time we allow or we operate single pilot, there's a checklist. What's the weather where they're departing? What's the weather like where they're going? What's the weather en route? Who the pilot is? Whether we've even talked to this person to ask him if they're okay operating as single pilot that day, and then we let them do it. And if there's an SIC available, we're just going to throw them in there.
Just make sure they know that that's never for revenue events.
Yeah, that was the last thing, because Christopher's looking at me funny. Yeah. We only operate single pilot for one of these things. One, it's a reposition flight. So I'm in St. Augustine, or I'm in Stewart. There's a plane coming out of maintenance. I'm taking it for Josh to fly in St. Augustine. And I'll drop it off and come back. It's a maintenance check flight. So I'm in Stewart. I go to Fort Lauderdale, go make sure the airplane's ready to fly. I go check it, everything's good, we sign it off and off it goes. And if we fly corporate. So no revenue flights are single pilot operated. Just to be clear. But still, you can see that even though we don't have passengers on board, we still care when we allow pilots to fly single pilot. Right? I'm single pilot rated. There are times I don't want to fly single pilot. Maybe it's not a good idea for me to fly single pilot.
Nobody likes to go to Teeter World single pilot.
Yeah. Right? As part of, I think I wanted to chime in with MedAir when you guys were talking about it. We talk about over-the-counter drugs, medication in our NDOC because it's a big deal. We want our pilots to know what to take, when to take, and if you take something, what you shouldn't do, or how long you should wait before you go and jump in an airplane. So, these are just some of the things that we do as Volato that is kind of different from what you and I have been through. And then there's more to come. Standards don't have to be the same for every department, right? It has to be catered for an individual department, for an individual process and procedure. Are standards the same as limits?
I think the standards are there so we never exceed the limits.
This is our standard, and at any given time, anybody's limits are going to be a little more conservative, right? We talk about it. You can't have standards that nobody can meet, right? That we can't meet. We can't meet those expectations. We can't have this airplane flying nonstop for 1,400 nautical miles with 4 passengers. We can't do it. Obviously, regulations is one thing, standards are something different. Are they a general operating procedure or are they specific to something? So it's something that we're toying with ideas, and we're going to make some of these into either SOPs or policies and processes, right? Does that make sense on standards and what we're trying to do over here and what we've accomplished this so far? With that, any questions, comments? Really? Well, guys, look, we're tickled to have you here. This has been very, very. It's been a lot of fun. We've shared with you things that we've done. We've, taken some of your questions and answers, and we're hopefully going to be a lot better this time next year. But with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mike Prachar. He's our COO. I think he's going to end the day. You want the cool thing, or are you just going to handheld it?
I'll take this one.
All right. Well, thanks, guys.
All right, well, lucky for you, I don't really have much to say. I just wanted to kind of wrap up the day. I think pretty much everybody's covered everything that we wanted to talk about. It's important to note that we've had this plan for a while. All the operations folks, we try to get together 2 to 4 times a year and work in the same place and go over a lot of the things we've talked about today. But in light of certain events, we decided that we would take this portion of it, invite everybody else in, show you what we're doing, hopefully get some feedback afterwards. We'd love to hear what you think. If there's things that you do in your organization that you think we should maybe look at doing, we'd love to hear it. Hopefully everybody is going to get something that they want to take away from this that is going to help do what you do every day. And we're just really we're proud of everyone here, and we're really happy that we were able to use this opportunity to take a leadership position and take everything we've learned in this short year and a half and really extend that out to the entire ecosystem. So for the last time today, thank you guys very much for being here. It means a lot to all of us, and enjoy the rest of your day.